Let's pick up today. The last time that well, blow, no. What the heck? Okay. So the last time that we were looking at, move this up here. That's what I was trying to do, and it just got weird on me. We looked at the Declaration of Independence. Let's move on today with the issue of the Constitution. So the Constitution itself is a document that was designed and created to replace the Articles of Confederation, which really were a very, in hindsight, poorly thought out and executed plan of government. The Articles of Confederation are a prime example of the six principles of economic thought. People make choices. The choice is that we want a weak government to prevent the abuse of power that we experienced in under England. Principle number 4, people will create systems to make the kind of economy they want work. Americans wanted an economy that would promote prosperity, wealth, and give them a chance at success and happiness. So they created a very weak government. Because the government was so weak, people began to abuse the loopholes or the big gray areas of governmental power because people will respond predictably to incentives. The government attempted to do stuff. What did they give up by creating a weak government? Well, they got a lot of freedom, but what they didn't get was a lot of security. And ultimately, what happened is really a prime example of principle number 6. The unintended outcome of this was things fell apart rapidly because the government really couldn't handle it. So, in order to try to make up with that, they were going to try to fix the Articles of Confederation. At the convention of 1787 in Philadelphia, the men sent there quickly came to the conclusion and agreement that the articles could not be fixed. And so therefore they decided that they were going to replace them by creating a brand new system. And what they came up with was the Constitution. Now, there are 6 goals listed in the Constitution in the preamble. That's the introduction of the document. The Constitution itself was created under the authority of the people of the United States. So one of the things there are things that genuinely bother me, and there are things that are just wrong. So an example of something that's just wrong, to borrow a phrase from Thomas Jefferson, a violation of nature and nature's God is like pineapple on pizza or white chocolate. Just wrong. But what bothers me is supposedly very educated people who make some very uneducated statements. And in some cases, these people are the ones who are running our government. Case in point is the statement that anybody who says that we don't live in a democracy is lying to you, and they're not very well informed. No, the answer is exact opposite. We're not lying, and we are very well informed. The Constitution itself is an example of this. When it says we the people, what that really means is that the people elected the men who were at the Philadelphia Convention in 1787 to represent them. This idea that representatives act on behalf of the people who choose them or elect them is called republicanism, with a small r. This is not the Republican Party. It is the idea that in a republic, which we got from Rome, you elect people to vote on your behalf. Now, at the convention, these representatives, on behalf of the people, created a brand new system of government. The preamble, which outlines the goals, the whys of the Constitution, is one sentence. It lists 6 specific goals or outcomes for the Constitution. And they are, with a brief explanation by me. Number 1, form a more perfect union. Something's got to be better than the Articles of Confederation. A confederation, by its definition, is a loose friendship or agreement between people or groups. The problem is that when it's so loose, there's nothing that binds you together. This is ultimately one of the problems that the Confederate States ran into in the Civil War. There wasn't a degree of unifying factor because their constitution was so deliberately vague and really lacking in central authority. An easy way to think about this might be, imagine in Major League Baseball or in professional football, if every team had their own rules at home that nobody else followed. It would make it really hard to establish a level playing field because of this. So, put together something that's a better fit for this new country than the Articles of Confederation. Number 2, establish justice. Create a system of law that treats all citizens equally and holds all equally accountable and has equal outcomes. 3, ensure domestic tranquility. So, tranquility is a fancy way of saying peace. And domestic would be kind of like home. So, peace at home. Now, for me, domestic tranquility is keeping my wife happy. Because that usually means that my life is more or less okay. What it means in this sense is trying to keep the states peaceful. One of the reasons why the Constitutional Convention occurred is because I think it's New York and New Jersey were on the verge of war with each other over the issue of a tollway. Creating domestic tranquility was a way of saying that we want to keep the peace between the states and keep everybody happy and functioning. Provide for the common defense. Part of the problem with a confederation was the legitimately kind of sketchy question of what would happen if, let's say, Canada invaded New York. Was it New York's job to defend New York, or was it the United States' job to defend New York? Nobody was really quite sure. And it had to be established that the country was treated as a whole and the states looked out for each other. Now, number 5 here, promote the general welfare. Let's reference something that we talked about at the beginning of the year last week. This idea of argument about a position. I am going to give you an opinion, but I can back that opinion up with quite a bit of fact. Nevertheless, it's not a fact. It's an opinion with a lot of evidence behind it. If you really want to know what the basic difference is between the two main political parties, and heck, between any political parties in the United States, It is the interpretation of this fifth goal. Welfare is like the good. How do you promote the good of everybody? One group says one thing, one group says another. When you really boil it down, both sides genuinely believe that what they are proposing and what they want to do will promote the general welfare the best. So that's why they believe what they do. Secure the blessings of liberty, or freedom, because that's what liberty really is. For ourselves, this is the people of 1787 and that time period, and posterity. Do not confuse posterity, which is the future, and the children who come after you, with posterior. That's the thing you sit on in class. The Constitution is designed to hold up and be applicable in 1787, in 1887, in 1987, in 2087. Now, this last statement here, do ordain and establish. The word ordain is a very interesting choice here. Ordaining is a sending forth in a religious mission. If you are a priest or a minister or a rabbi or an imam, you are ordained to serve the Lord in your community. There is this sense that this Constitution is a divine undertaking. It is sacred. And this is really how the people who made it felt and believed. The Constitution is the work of a large committee of people at the 1787 Philadelphia Convention. The work of the Constitution itself, the actual document, was most likely written by a guy named Gouverneur Morris. But in order to put it together, he used the notes taken by the Secretary of the Constitutional Convention, James Madison. So in many respects, Madison is really the father of the Constitution. And as we'll talk about tomorrow, he is more specifically the father of the Bill of Rights, which we'll get into tomorrow. And that'll help sort of set up the framework for where we're going to end up looking at why America ended up getting into a civil war. And also looking at George Washington's observations about America as he was stepping aside. Okay, that's it for tonight. Peace and love.